Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I do hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter and are appreciated. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into tonight's second half, shall we? All right, guys, so today's subscriber submitted experience comes to us from a gentleman out of Somerset, Maine, which is in the northern part of Maine, not the coastal part, inland Maine. It is probably the northernest most part of the Appalachian Trail. For those of you who don't know, the Appalachian Trail starts up in Maine. Gentleman's email was short and sweet. Jeff, I heard you talk about Maine quite a lot and the Adirondacks. I've got some information I'd like to share with you. I am not a writer, but I am a sheriff's deputy, a volunteer fireman, and a volunteer search and rescue. I can tell you that this experience has changed my life. Please reach out. November 19th. So I did. Texted him around 3:30 this afternoon, and I get a response. Holy cow, I didn't think you were going to respond to me. Sorry about your family, your dad, this and that. And I said, hey, are you free? And he said, I'll be free around 6:30 if that's good for you, sir. I said, well, that's perfect for me. I said, I got nothing else to do with my life except work on the channel. So I do some more work, some more email work, emailed some subscribers and such. And 6:30 comes around, and literally 6:29 in 51 seconds, my phone is ringing. And it's Brant. And I said, hello, how are you? I'm doing well. He said, listen, I don't want to bore you. I got some information I want to share with you. Where do you want to start? I said, okay, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Well, my name is Brant. You can use my real name. Sheriff's deputy. And I am a volunteer fire department fireman, and also search and rescue volunteer. I've lived in Maine my entire life, up in Somerset, and the experience that I got to share with you has changed my life in the way that I look at the northern woods of Maine, in any woods at that matter, once you have an encounter, if you've never had one, I hope that you never do. I know that people that have not, they say, I can't wait until I have one, until they do, because even if it's not a violent or whatever experience, it does change your life. And so he and I start talking, and this experience took place just south of a little kind of hamlet of Somerset called West Fork, on the Kennebec River. Now, the Kennebec runs kind of almost right down to Augusta, I believe, but it's a fairly long running river through Maine. They had gotten a phone call. The search and rescue organization that he works for had gotten a phone call from this adventure-bound rafting corporation, which is right on the Kennebec River. We've got a couple of kayaks that were rented. Few young adults were going to go camping for a night, and they haven't been back in 2 days. There was only going to be like a 18-hour trip or whatever, go out in the early afternoon, camp, come back in early afternoon, no more than 24 hours. So he and another fella, being that where it's at, load up their trailer. They attach the boat trailer to their truck because they know that they're going to have to get into the river and at least follow the river down to where they may have been. And it is pretty dense out there. It's a very rural area. Somerset's like 4,000 square miles with a population of like 50,000. So there's a lot of remote places in there. Even the towns that are there are remote. But it's beautiful. I mean, it's northern Maine is like the Adirondacks to me. It's God's country. And so they get down to Adventure Bound probably an hour and a half, 2 hours after they had received the telephone call. And they check in, they get the names of the people, and apparently when they rent rafts or whatever, it's protocol that they fill out a form stating that adventure-bound rafting or whatnot is not liable for any kind of thing that could possibly go wrong with you. That you are now using their equipment, but they are not responsible if you drowned, if you whatever, get attacked by a wild turkey and get your eye plucked out, and they take a photo, which is really cool because if they didn't do that, these two guys would have gone in there pretty much blind, just looking for a couple random people. So they get all that information and they get together. Brant and his companion get together. He asked me not to use his name because he doesn't know if he has permission to use his name or not. But so they get all the information and they kind of set up a plan of attack. They of course ask, which way did they go? Did they go up, which would be north up the Kennebec, or did they go south towards the ocean, which is a long ways away? the Adventure Bound or the rafting company didn't really know which way they went. The itinerary wasn't really all that detailed. And so they kind of went with their own gut instinct and said, hey, well, let's go with the flow of the river. So we'll go south, following the river down. They end up going down the river and they're traveling. Now, the Appalachia Trail runs kind of along the Kennebec River, and it crosses it at one point. And so they're going along. They're just beautiful day. They're cruising through. They run into what they see in the distance is like a little campsite set up off the shore of the river. They're like, holy, this is quick, thinking it's these three people. And they shore up, introduce themselves. Of course, they are in company, search and rescue company's logoed shirts and cap. And they introduce themselves and they say, hey, we thought you were someone else, but how long have you been here? Have you seen anybody? Have you touched base with anybody? And the people that were at the campsite said, yeah. We talked to those people yesterday. And they said they were feeling out the water and trying to figure out a best location, where to camp, where the most remote part would be, but still be in kind of an area where if anything happened, they could get out of there fairly quickly. And the one guy that was at the camp, apparently he's not from Maine, but he's hiked this region. He's a photographer / hiker, and spends a lot of his time up there and on the trail. So he said, yeah, there's a spot just past where you rented your boats. Go back up river, and it's just by this area a town called Caratunk or Cartunk. On the opposite side of the river, there's some woods, there's some trails out there, there's a pond. You could shore up your kayaks, no one will bother them. And you can hike out to that pond and go camping out there with nobody bothering you. But if you were to hurt yourself, you could get help immediately. Okay, and so thank you, yada yada, and they go back upriver. They get to an area where they believe these people shored up. It's kind of across the river from Caratunk, and they shore their boat up, get out, and they start looking around, looking for tracks, and they start to, we should get out to that pond at this time, probably about an hour it'll take us. All right, so if we go out there, laying out the time-wise, they decide that if they are at that pond, that they'll let them know, hey, you guys were supposed to be back a day ago. Unless you don't want law enforcement called on you, which would be him. come back. One of you come back with us. Let the people know, pay for another couple of nights or whatever, and I will bring you back. You don't even have to kayak out. So that's their plan of attack. They hike out to this kind of remote pond. As they're hiking out, they do find these 2 kayaks, 3 people, 2 kayaks. There's a 1-man and a 2-man kayak. And they're shored up, kind of pushed off to the side in the woods, tipped upside down, so no water or anything will accumulate in there. And tied off with some rope to a tree. Not really a theft prevention, but pretty much probably for whatever. I don't know why he said it. So they end up going to the pond, and they start looking around, but they don't see any kind of sign of life. They don't see any kind of fire pit that's fairly new, just nothing. And these people did have a tent and a couple backpacks and stuff, which they had gotten from the itinerary from the rafting rental place. So at this point, they are now thinking, well, we've got about another 4.5 hours of light. Should we push on? Because in this area, there are just little ponds and little systems of water all throughout this region. It's really interesting. It's like upstate New York when the glacier moved through. It just carved out land, and little ponds and lakes and such were made. There's a couple man-made lakes up there. So they decide, yeah, let's go. We already know they're here. We found their kayaks, tied up, responsible. Maybe something happened. Maybe, one of them got hurt and they got lost, can't figure out, don't want to leave someone behind. Let's push on. So they end up hiking out another 45 minutes to a pond called Pierce Pond. And there's a campsite on the opposite side of the pond. Maybe they're there. Let's go check and see. They go into this Pierce campsite, Cobb Pierce campsite, and they end up asking a couple of people, some younger people that are there, because the people that they're essentially looking for right now are kind of crispies, deadheads, I guess, dreads, probably, drinking IPs and smoking with reefer. So they see a couple people at this campsite that fit the similarities. Maybe they hooked up with these guys. Maybe these guys know. Hey, how are you? Da 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 da. Did you see these people? And so they then the one guy kind of says, yeah, we saw whatever his name was. He calls him some like weird kind of deadhead name. They said that they were going to go out to Otter Pond, which is just kind of northeast of this pond, about a half an hour away. So they end up, all right, thank you very much. When did you see them? Oh, that was last night. Okay, well, maybe they, got caught up. They got lost. They got hurt. So they end up hiking out there, and they get to Otter Pond. They can see a pond in the distance, not too far. Now, when I say distance, I don't mean like miles away, like within, which is called North Otter Pond. And North Otter Pond is a little longer than Otter Pond. So at this point, they start to see some like tracks, bare feet, some shoe tracks and such. Perfect. We've got confirmation that, you know, someone's been here at least. Let's look around. They bino the area, and they look over towards North Otter Pond, and they see this orange tent set up off in the distance. They walk out towards the tent, and they see that first they notice that the campfire is out, but it was constructed. They had taken the time to lay stones around, and they notice that the tent, the back of the tent, is kind of messed up. They don't realize it until they get right up on the tent that the tent has these large claw marks through the backside of the tent. There's 2 backpacks still in the tent, couple sets of shoes, and they're like, what the hell? Bear? And now they're looking for blood, but they don't see any blood. Next thing, they realize that, you know, we got 2 hours of daylight left. It's about an hour and 15 back to our boat. We've got flashlights and such, but, you know, what if, you know, something is desperately wrong with these people? What if one of them's dead? Is pretty much what he said. At that point, they start looking at the ground and looking at where the tracks are. The tracks are scattered. They are not in a single file. They are not kind of side by side. There's just like a set of tracks over here, a set of tracks here, and a set of tracks kind of heading back towards the woods, which would bring them back to the initial pond that they had just come from. And so now they know that, okay, they are separated. We've got some sort of animal that attacked the tent. Did it do it while they were in the tent? Did it do it after? We don't know where these people are now. The only thing that we know for sure is that they had taken enough time to set up a decent campsite with like the rocks around their fire, and a perimeter. You know, they cleaned their perimeter, and you know, so they were fairly responsible. So at this point, Brant's like, we've got to find these people. You know, it's not like they're drug-addled idiots that are going to set the forest on fire. Look at, you know, what they did. They're fairly responsible. How about you follow the set of tracks that go one way and I'll follow the set of tracks that go the other way? Okay. He starts walking, the other guy starts walking in the other direction. And Brant walks probably almost about a half a mile in, and he can hear talking
So he hears this kind of whispering, but not really low whispering. And he yells out their names. And he announces himself, hey, this is Brant. I am this person. I'm here to, help you get out of here. I work with search and rescue. We were sent out here by the rafting company. And he notices this kind of like rocky outcropping with a smallish couple of cave mouths. And he's looking and he's like, there's no way all three people are in there. But that's where I'm getting the sense that they're there, because I can hear something. And I swear to God, someone responded. So he gets up in there and he looks and he said, oh, it's a little larger than I initially thought. And he said, hello, and he hears this girl's voice say something, and they come kind of crawling out of this mouth of this little cave. And he says, hey, how are you? Are you okay? We found your campsite. We were sent here to locate you. The people that you rented your kayaks from are kind of upset and worried about you, all in the same sense. Let's get you out of here. Are you okay? Is anyone hurt? Why haven't you been back? What's wrong with your tent? And the guy that's with there's two girls, one guy, and the guy that's comes out last out of the cave ends up saying, we were in our tent last night, or 2 nights ago, and we heard this breathing. At first, we thought, maybe it was a deer because it was off in the distance. Then I thought maybe it was a moose. So I told the girls to be quiet and, let's hear if we hear any heavy vibrational footsteps, because if it is a moose, we're going to have to figure out some place to get to where this thing can't get us. So more than likely, we're going to have to climb a tree. And they wait, but they end up hearing this kind of heavy vibrational steps. But they realize, like, okay, it doesn't sound like a quadruped. It doesn't sound like a horse would. It sounds like a large human. And at that point, the tent kind of just gets crunched down and ripped open. And they turn and look, and all they see is this muzzle, because they have one of those kind of lantern lights that take batteries hanging in the top of the tent. So when they turn and they see this muzzle coming into the tent, and they take off running, and that's where the kind of crazy footprints are. This thing is then in their tent, because as they went out of the tent, instead of backing out like a person would, it pushed itself into the tent. So now it's kind of stuck in the tent for a couple of minutes, or a minute or so. It's trying to get out of the tent. So they end up getting back together and running until they find this outcropping, and they crawl into the cave system. And he said, well, all right, we didn't see anything like this. We didn't see any footprints either. We saw your footprints, but I didn't see any kind of paw prints or hoof prints or kind of anything. So now he's thinking, okay, maybe these guys are on drugs. Maybe they took some DMT or some acid or something. Maybe they're having a hallucinogenic trip. How long have you been in the tent or in that cave exactly? We don't know. We lost track of time. I don't have a watch on. We've been in there for a long time. We're starving. We're thirsty. A night has passed, but they're in shock and terror at the same sense. So he's like, all right, now Brent's like thinking these guys are just not bad people, but I don't really want to use the words he used. But kind of like stoners, and he's a little perturbed being that he's a sheriff's deputy. And, these guys now owe this company money. They had to come out and look. So they end up, all right, let's get back to your tent, grab your packs, grab your shoes. I've got some water, pulls out some water for them. Let's get you to the boat. We'll put the kayaks on our boat and we'll get out of here. All right, thank you, yada, yada. Thank you so much. Okay. They go in, they walk. He ends up meeting the other search and rescue guy, and they get everything squared away, and they put the kayaks onto their boat, fasten them down, because they don't have a huge boat. Now there's, when it's two people, it's pretty comfy, Now you got 5 and 3 or 2 kayaks. You got 3 people, 3 extra people, and 2 kayaks. So you took a lot of room. As they're loading everything up, they're like, well, shit, now it's dark almost. So as they're loading everything up, he's talking to his partner from the search and rescue, kind of filling him in. Hey, I think these guys, are drugged up. I think they did some acid or possibly some sort of hallucinogenic drugs. But then he starts to, as he's talking to his teammate, he starts to think, well, if they took drugs, that wouldn't have caused the tent's damage. This tent was pushed, crunched down, and torn apart, like torn open in the back, where this Dogman had run into the tent. Instead of like a human, like if it was a serial killer or something, they'd cut the tent open, the people would come out running, and he'd wait and he'd get them. This thing kind of just pushed in as they were running out of the tent. So now he's kind of like, all right, this is weird. Talking to his teammate, making sure everybody's okay, kind of giving him a once over. Because irregardless of what his view of these people are, he still has a duty to them, a civic duty to, keep them safe, make sure they are not hurt. And so they've got about a half an hour kind of cruise down the river to get back to where their truck is parked, where these people rented the kayaks from. And they're still sitting there talking. The boat has a light on the front, kind of like a spotlight. So they know they're going to be okay. But he's kind of trying to feel everything out. They ended up, they took the packs, they took the tent. They didn't leave any kind of debris or garbage back there. You know, they brought in what they took in, or brought out what they took in. So he's looking at the tent, and he's looking up at his buddy, and he's like, check this out. You know, these marks don't look like a knife. Like, it's huge. These are huge, and whatever kind of ripped, instead of like where a knife would slash, this is just like a rip. His teammate at that point is now on edge, and he can tell that he's on edge. People are in the boat. They're talking amongst themselves. And he's like, I don't know if I should call, you know, a couple deputies to meet us down there and figure out what exactly, you know, if these people are drugged up and they think something like this really happened. Maybe they're on, you know, some really heavy drugs. Maybe they have some with them. I don't, you know, he doesn't know them. He maybe should run their IDs and shit. He's talking to his partner, and he notices his partner's kind of like got this look of WTF am I looking at? And Brant's like, what? And he turns, and it's about a little after dusk. So you've got the sky is kind of that purplish pink with gray. You know, it's dark. But there is still some light. But back towards where the camp was, where they just got these people out of, that the sky isn't pink and purplish over that way. It's dark there. And he's like, what are you looking at? And he turns and he looks and he sees these kind of two red dots. He's like, what the hell's that? And he's like, I don't know what that is. They stand there kind of fascinated for a second, but they notice that whatever it is, the dots are growing in size. And his partner goes, we need to get the hell out of here. Whatever that is, it's coming towards us. So they push the boat into the water, and they start it up, and they start heading back down. But they're watching these two dots come up. Bam, now it's smack at the riverbed, and they are downstream, but they can still see about whatever feet away, and they're trying to make out the silhouette of what they're seeing. It's obviously humanoid, but it's freaking huge with red eyes, and they hear this splash. Everybody's quiet at that point, because by now the people in the boat that they rescued have now caught wind of what the hell they're looking at. The girl starts freaking out, like, oh my God, it found us. That's what it was. It found us. The other girl's like, go. You know, they're screaming, like, just get us out of here. You know, we were safe where we were. Get us out of here. They keep going down the river, and Brant grabs his flashlight out of his pack, and he's looking around off in the distance in the river. And what he sees is these eyes. They're now submerged like this. And he tells the people, the guy and the two girls, he said, get down. And he kind of spins the spotlight and turns it on. And what he sees is this Dogman is flopping through the water. he said, Jeff, I've heard stories of these creatures climbing trees, and they are very efficient at climbing trees. They are very agile on flat ground, on, rough terrain. But I've never heard of these things swimming. He said, and, he made a joke, and it wasn't doing the doggy paddle. He said, if you've ever seen or how you would imagine a mermaid to swim, that it was propelling itself with its back legs and essentially steering with its hands, but pushing away the water. So it's literally coming up on them. He yells to his partner, give it some gas. It's 30, 40 feet from us. Give it some gas. What the hell is that? The partner's got the motor thing, and he's looking like, what the fuck is in the water? What is that thing? And he doesn't have his firearm on him. He didn't bring it because he thought, he didn't know who he was dealing with. He knows that he got a call. He thought, a couple kids, no reason to bring a firearm. In and out, done. And they get past this area where the lights are on from the town, and they start to get a little faster because the water's a little deeper now. And they still see it. Now it's actually picking up speed, and it's roughly 20 feet from their boat and swimming very like an Olympic swimmer, quick. Just and then it just falls back. He said when it fell back, so it was swimming, and it just, pushed back like that. I'll try to do it. We used Zoom to talk after, so he could show me a couple of. He said, I want to show you some things to really demonstrate how it looked. So when it was swimming, it was down, but when this creature either got tired of chasing him or it knew it wasn't going to catch them. So it's in the water, flat like this, and then the water, the depth of the river there is too deep for it to have touched ground. So it's swimming, and then it just like literally pushes back with its arms and kind of floats there for a second, and he can see its upper body, he can see its face, its head. He said it had very sporadic hairs all over what he could see in the water, and he's got his spotlight on it, and his partners, they're both looking at this thing. Its fur on its head seemed to be a lot thicker than its sporadic hair, like past its shoulders down from what he could see. He couldn't see below a certain point, maybe like right here. But he said what caught him off guard is when he's looking at this thing, he distinctly saw two nipples where, male breasts would be, or, female, but it didn't have female breasts. It had nipples. That's how sparsely its hair was on its chest. So when it did that, he's watching it, and that's what stuck in his mind was the nipples. He said, I don't know why. He said, maybe because I'm freaky like that, but the nipples really popped out at me. And I said, yeah, well, maybe because you saw the hair of this creature, but then you saw something very human-like other than the way it came up to the shore and then, standing bipedally, but then was swimming like this, but its back end, like that. Maybe that was the one human characteristic that popped out at you, and that's why you've kept that with you for so long. So they do end up getting to the rafting area where their truck is. That Dogman, like I said, stopped and kind of just peered up at them, and it was a very human-like thing, the way it moved, because prior to everything that he was seeing, he was seeing this thing running. He's hearing what these people are saying about it, but then he sees it methodically move through the water. They get to the adventure-bound area. They shore up, back the truck up, get everything set. And he says, listen, right now I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell these people that you guys were lost. That's why we're so late coming back. I'm going to tell them that, they shouldn't file any charges, that we're not trying to steal anything. I don't think it'd be in anyone's best bet to say a word about what happened out there today, or the last couple of days for you guys. So I'm gonna go in with you if they want their money for the couple of for the day that you missed, because you already paid them for the one day, but if they want that other day, pay them and go home. And they agree. He said, I'm going to keep your tent. He brought the tent. They had all their gear, they what they brought in, they brought out, because they weren't getting chased at that time. He said, I want to look at your, I want to figure out what the hell that thing was. So I'm keeping your tent. But you guys are free to go as far as I'm concerned. And him and his buddy, they talk about it. Same conclusion. Let's not tell anybody about what the hell we just saw. But I'm not going out in the woods by myself anymore, on any more search and rescue missions, I probably won't go out. His friend ended up not being in the search and rescue team anymore. He decided, hey, I don't want any more part of whatever's out there. Brant is still volunteer fire department, search and rescue, and deputy. After all of that went down, about 6 months, 7 months, spring of next year, he gets a call as being one of the few deputies that are up in that region, because like I said, it is remote, and that there's something dead on the side of the Kennebec River. And he decides, okay, let me go up and check it out. Now, as he's going through the area, he realizes that, wow, this is only, eighth of a mile away from where that experience occurred 6 months ago, 6 or 7 months ago. And he gets there and he sees what it is. He's like, oh, okay, all right, good. It's a moose. Probably fell, broke its leg, and drowned in the water. All right. So he gets out, and of course you can't leave it in the water to pollute the river, nor can you leave it. So he calls Fish and Game. And as he's like, all right, I got to get this thing out of here. Let me try and get it up out of the water so much. I'm not going to be able to, because this thing probably outweighs me by 150 pounds, maybe 2, because moose are big, but it's not a full-grown moose. It's still a juvenile moose, but it's still bigger than he is, a lot bigger. So when he gets down there and he doesn't see anything, he doesn't notice anything off right away. But when he starts to pull on the animal to get it back, it moves. And he falls back and he's like, what the hell? He's like, thinking, I'm not that strong. And he sees the blood kind of roll into the water. And when he looks, he sees that the stomach of this moose has been ripped open, and a lot of soft tissue and inner organs are gone. And he's like, holy shit. And he immediately thinks back to that night. It was this creature that did it, because this is not a bear. The bear would not have done this. Fish and Game show up. He says, yeah, I just pulled it out. It looks like a bear attack to me, he says to the Fish and Game guy. And Fish and Game guy is like, looks at it, and they kind of roll it over a little so he can look at it more. And he could tell, Brant could tell that something was wrong by the guy's face, because the way he looked at it was like, what the hell? It's not a bear. What is that? What did this? And he said, yeah, that's bear. As he's saying, yup, that's a bear attack, his eyes and facial expression are saying something totally different. And they end up taking care of the carcass. And since that time, he said that a few people out in Forks have claimed to have seen something run through their property. But other than that, there's been no attacks on animal, like someone's dog, a random hiker. So this thing's obviously feeding on the wildlife that's in the area, which is abundant. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. Your support is what makes this channel continue to grow and go, and honestly what makes it special. It's truly appreciated. Brant, thank you for reaching out and sharing this with us. I apologize for being so late and getting in touch with you. But yeah, I think the reason why, the one big thing that sticks in his head is how it was swimming, but cutting the water with its front hand / paws. And then when it realized, like, I'm not going to catch this boat, these guys are gone, it just, and that water's too deep for it to stand there. So it literally, these creatures are more adapted to living in the wild than we ever could imagine.
There you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's second half as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and honestly, what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on your children, your pets, your family, and your friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.